Hey guys, today is another episode of A-Side Outdoors. Unfortunately, today is a somber day, especially for people living in BC after what has happened, unfortunately, at Tumbler Ridge. Just gonna cut to the point, a transgender shooter, I'm not gonna name them, they decided to go into the school and kill approximately 9 children. So as we know so far, the series of events unfolded like this.
On February 10th at approximately 1:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at Tumbler Ridge, RCMP received a report of an active shooter at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. A police-initiated public alert, PIPA, was issued as officers responded. Police from Tumbler Ridge RCMP and surrounding detachments responded immediately, with members from the local detachment arriving within 2 minutes of the initial call. Upon arrival, there was active gunfire, and as officers approached the school, rounds were fired in their direction. Officers entered the school to locate the threat. Within minutes, an individual confirmed to be the shooter was located deceased, with what appeared to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The suspect has been identified as 18-year-old Jesse Van Rootselaar, who is a resident of Tumbler Ridge. 2 firearms, a long gun and a modified handgun, were recovered by responding officers. Determining the origin of these firearms and what role they played in the shootings remains a significant part of the active and ongoing investigation. Multiple victims were located throughout the school, along with approximately 25 individuals with possible injuries. Once it was determined to be safe, officers evacuated over 100 students and faculty to a local community center, while police continued to assess whether any ongoing threats remained.
Officer Romina Dea from Global News, could you please expand a little bit on the suspect? Was he known to police? Were there any red flags regarding his mental health?
So a suspect is identified as an 18-year-old female by the name of Jessie. We have a history of police attendance at the family residence. Some of those calls were related to mental health issues. Yes, the female adult victim is the mother of the suspect, and the youth male is the brother of the suspect, or stepbrother.
Can you expand, you talked about the history of mental health with this female suspect. Could you expand on that?
I'll give you perhaps remaining some general comments on that. Police had attended that residence on multiple occasions over the past several years, dealing with concerns of mental health with respect to our suspect. I can say that on different occasions, the suspect was apprehended for assessment and follow-up.
So apprehended under the Mental Health Act?
Yes.
Taken to hospital?
In some circumstances, yes.
Any indication whether or not the suspect was receiving any help for their mental health situation regarding counseling, any of those services that are involved?
I don't have that information at this time if the suspect was currently receiving care. I don't have that information at this time.
Any of the interactions with police, did any of them have to do with weapons?
Yes.
In particular?
Yes.
Could you expand on that, please?
I will say that, again, I'm not trying to be too circumspect, but police have attended that residence in the past, approximately a couple of years ago, where firearms were seized under the criminal code. I can say that at a later point in time, the lawful owner of those firearms petitioned for those firearms to be returned, and they were.
Were criminal charges laid in relation to those firearms?
No.
So on
What's
US
the firearm?
with FYI media, my question is, we've heard all around the world reports coming out from different media, not local but world, and we've heard people from Tumbler Ridge, actually people that know the shooter, and they are all saying that this person is transgender. Why is the RCMP not speaking to this? Why are we hiding this from the public?
Well, first off, thank you for your question. We're not hiding it. In fact, you're the first media to ask the question. I will say this. We identified the suspect as they chose to be identified in public and in social media. I can say that Jesse was born as a biological male who approximately, the information that I have, approximately 6 years ago began to transition to female and identified as female both socially and publicly.
Unfortunately, we've heard a lot of transgender as mass issue. Do you think there's a correlation here?
It's too early to say whether that has any correlation in this investigation. I think it's important to recognize that this investigation is still in its infancy. We have scenes still lock down the school and the residence while we execute search warrants and gather further evidence and talk to witnesses that may have further evidence for police.
Can you tell us about the weapon?
I'm just wondering, can you tell me when were police, prior to yesterday, last in contact with Jesse?
That's a good question. I probably have that answer somewhere here in my papers, but I believe we were there sometime last year.
So nothing in the last few days?
Nothing in the last few days, that's correct.
Okay, and you talked about the guns that were
Mhm.
recovered. And can you say anything about who owned those guns, whether he had any sort of...
So I will say this. I know the guns are of significant interest to everybody. Part of the reason we haven't identified the specific models of the firearms or ownership is because at this point in time, our investigators continue to pursue those leads. We want to make sure that the information we do provide is accurate. We want to ensure that we can identify properly the ownership of the firearms, how they were procured, whether they were lawfully owned, unlawfully owned, whether they were manufactured, and whether there could be any other parties to an offense that we are not yet aware of. So when we are able to release that information, we certainly will.
He was quite young. Did he have a license to have that?
I can say that she had a license that had expired. I believe it was in 2024. She did not have any firearms registered to her.
Can you talk about, sir, any indication in the information you have regarding Jesse experiencing bullying at the school, any sort of difficulty at the school because of this transition from male to female?
I do not have any information to suggest that was the case. I can say that Jesse dropped out of school approximately 4 years ago and was not currently attending the school.
Sir, I have a question here from Jared from the Western Standard. They wanted to just know why we waited until now to confirm the identity of the suspect.
It's a good question. I know it's one of concern, specifically with the speed of social media. I think it's important to recognize that yesterday, when we first provided a media availability, it was approximately 5 hours after the active shooter event. At that point in time, we were still trying to lock down locations. We had victims that we were evacuating. As you can imagine, the scene was quite chaotic with significant amount of trauma. And it's important for us, when we do release information, to get it accurate. I point to the case of now having to correct and say that there's only 9 deceased persons instead of 10. We want to get information out as quick as possible, but we also appreciate that that information needs to be accurate, because particularly when we're dealing with victims or are dealing with the identity of a suspect, we have to take into consideration, in this case, our suspect was deceased. We had to locate next of kin to notify them. So I would hate, notwithstanding the public interest, I would hate for someone to find out that their loved one was deceased coming from our podium or coming from the news media in advance of being told in person.
And then I have one other question here from Ruth with Energetic City. Was the suspect related to anyone in the school?
I can say that the suspect was not related to any of the victims of the school. I don't have any broader information beyond that, other than say that the suspect was related to the 2 victims at the private residence.
As much as I rip on people like the RCMP and times like this, the people willing to take that job on and step in the line of fire, I have the ultimate respect for it. There's 2 people currently that are in critical condition. My heart goes out to them and their family. Like I said, as some of you may have known from other videos, I have been shot before. I unfortunately kind of know what it's like to be behind the gun on the other side of the receiving end. And it's the worst thing you could probably potentially imagine, especially when you are unarmed or something like that, and you are facing such an evil person. It's just absolutely brutal. And to do this to kids that are 12 or 13 years old that have never done anything to you is just absolutely pathetic. Really just the lowest of the low I could ever think of. I couldn't imagine like a more cowardly act for a man to do such a thing as that person did. And no, I'm not gonna give in and fucking whatever, call them by their preferred pronouns. I mean, I would if maybe they didn't kill like fucking 10 people, so they can kind of suck a dick at this point, as far as I'm concerned. Anyways, fuck, I don't know what to say. But whatever, anyway, so at this point, what the police have said is that the person used a modified handgun as well as a long gun. There's pictures online right now that are surfaced that show the mother's gun safe. I don't know if this is accurate, but this is supposedly from her Facebook that she put on there. Of course, people have to think and remember that Tumbler Ridge is a very rural community. Most of their industry is just mining and stuff like that. I've had friends that have lived up there. There's a few apartments and stuff like that, but besides a dispensary for cannabis and a Subway, I believe there's not a whole lot going on there, at least from what the stories I've heard from friends that have lived there. It's a very rural place. There's tons of hunting opportunities for things like moose and other stuff like that. Having firearms in the home is very common. I would assume almost every home in Tumbler Ridge probably has firearms in it. I would say that is not the fault of the firearm itself that this happened, but more the individual itself and the fact that mental health issues were allowed to fester, along with potential maybe other issues where, I don't know, I don't want to surmise, but maybe he was doing some weird stuff and the rest of the community maybe like didn't accept that so much because they were in a more rural setting where like people maybe aren't as willing to accept things like out of the realm of normal for people's sexuality, and then he maybe lashed out or something like that, and then yeah, that's potentially what I'm assuming, but I have no idea. Anyways, the real fact of the matter is that that whole town has changed forever. There's 10 people that don't now have a mother to go home to. Their children are on life support. They have to go look at a casket, what they want to do for burial, and unfortunately their poor, I don't know, their young lives taken out too soon, lost for all of us. And it's yeah, just really sad. So if everyone would take a moment with me and just take a moment to have some prayer for the people that are in Tumbler Ridge right now, and for the families of people with children on life support right now, dealing with things that are life-altering injuries, even if they do survive potentially. Definitely have your prayers with them. Hope for things like a miracle, because it's deserved. Those kids do deserve a second chance at being able to survive, live a life, do positive things in the world. Yeah, it's ridiculous that somebody with such menace and such negative malice could snuff out the life of so many potential future bright children. So as far as we know so far, like I said, from the mother's gun safe photos, it was a safe. It looked like the ammunition and the firearms were locked together. It does appear that there was a Chris Vector, SKS, Lee Enfield, some other shotguns and stuff like that. According to reports, his mother and I believe sister were both taken out with the shotgun. So I'm not sure if that means that he decided to use the shotgun also in the high school. I don't know if he may have taken one of the other guns. They're saying that he used a modified handgun. I don't know if that's what they're saying the Chris Vector is, or if he maybe had an illegal gun. My assumption is due to his age being 18, he would not have a firearms license unless he had basically like done the course on his birthday, went and did that, like, I don't know, maybe with the intentions of doing this. I have no idea. I don't want to speculate on that, but I would say it would be probably difficult for an 18-year-old to have a legal PAL. That's all I would say. I mean, I don't know many 18-year-olds with a PAL. I knew maybe one person. So, yeah, anyways, that's what we know so far. Mark Carney, the police, they're doing fucking loops right now. I don't even know. They're just doing loops because they don't know what to do. It's like the Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other. The meme where like the guy's gonna press the button and he can't decide what he wants to do. Mark Carney's like sweating bullets right now because he's got a transgender daughter at home. Obviously, that's kind of one of those things where it's a sticking point for him, even when they had that meeting with Trump and they were talking about stuff like the sports and other stuff like that. Like, he was literally, you could see his blood pressure rising, like the freaking the veins in his forehead were gonna explode. So I don't know, it's a sticking point for him personally. I really don't have any problems, typically speaking, with like the most majority of people. If you decide to do whatever you decide to do, you decide to do. I don't really care personally, like in terms of you are transgender or whatever, but like if you are fucked in the head, then you're fucked in the head. Like there is a difference between people who are like actually legitimately like transgender and people who are like just fucked in the head. So I think we need to make that kind of discernible difference, because this shit's getting out of control. So the question is, what is the government going to end up doing with this? Are they going to try and run with the tragedy? My assumption is they're probably going to bury it pretty quickly because it doesn't fit their narrative. And the more information we get about the shooter, it's probably going to just blow up in their face if they decide to go with that, or make them seem like they are anti-trans or something like that, if they decide to actually address the root issues of that, maybe. So yeah, I don't know. We're gonna see what ends up unfolding, but there has also been reports that it may have been an SKS that was used. That's potentially possible. I don't even want to say this, but I saw the picture, unfortunately, of the girl who was shot, and you could see the bullet hole in her neck. And I don't know, it looks maybe like it was a 9mm. I'm thinking if it was an SKS, it would have probably it would be like, you just be Dundies, I would assume. So I'm thinking maybe probably 9mm, but I don't know. It's fucked up. Anyways, at this point I'd usually say go buy my merch, but I'm not gonna say that because we don't need to have like some ridiculous chipmunk shit while this shit's going down. We're gonna be more serious at this point. Anyways, guys, I don't know what to do at this point, but just stay strong, stay together, be there for the people of Tumbler Ridge, and don't let the government spin this, because we can't let them do that.